Good morning, students. Let us begin our today's class on the chapter Is Matter Around Us Pure? I hope till now, whatever topics we had already discussed, those are clear to all of you. So, we have discussed till now about mixtures and pure substances. So, today we are going to discuss a new topic, that is separating the components of a mixture. So, my first question and most important question, students, before starting of the topic is why there is a need of separation of components of a mixture. So, we will discuss first the needs of separation. So, most of the natural substances are not chemically pure. So, different methods of separation are used to get useful individual components from a mixture. Secondly, to remove unwanted substances from a mixture. And the last one, to obtain different useful substances from a mixture. So, as all of you are well acquainted that most of the natural substances are not chemically pure. So, different methods of separation are used to get individual components from the mixture. So, only separation makes it possible to study and use the individual components of a mixture. So, let us watch a video.
Separation is needed to remove unwanted substances from the mixture. Water coming to our homes contains impurities such as chemicals, small dust particles, microorganisms, etc. Drinking such water could cause health problems. We need to separate these unwanted substances from water. For that, we use water purifiers containing various filters. The food grain often contains stones. These are not useful. We need to remove them from the mixture before cooking. The industrial waste contains many impurities that may harm the organisms living in water. Therefore, the impurities must be removed from such water before mixing into the water bodies. Separation is needed to obtain a useful substance from the mixture. Iron is obtained from iron ore. The ore contains impurities such as dust, sand, etc. We need to separate the iron particles from the mixture. For that, we use magnetic properties of material. How do you separate nail mixed in dust? You should use magnet for separation and thus pick up useful substances, that is nail, from the mixture. Many times, separation is needed to obtain different useful substances from the mixture. For example, with various separation methods, we get different useful materials from milk. The oil obtained from Earth's crust contains many useful substances. We obtain different substances such as petrol, diesel, kerosene, etc. with proper separation method. So, I hope you have understood the need of separation.
So, students, I think now all of you must have understood the need of separation. So, we are knowing that components of a mixture should be separated because some components may not be useful or may spoil the useful components of the mixture. So, we see that before we use a substance, we need to separate harmful or non-useful substances that may be mixed with it. So, sometimes we are separating even useful components if we need to use them separately. So, the substances to be separated may be particles of different sizes or materials. So, these may be solids, liquids, or even gases. So, how do we separate substances mixed together if they have so many different properties? So, let us discuss some simple methods of separating substances that are mixed together. So, simple methods like first one is hand picking. You can see over here. So this method of hand picking can be used for separating slightly larger sized impurities like the pieces of dirt, stone and husk from wheat, rice or pulses. The quantity of such impurities is usually not very large. So in such situations, we find that hand picking is a convenient method of separating substances. You can see over here in the diagram as well. And these methods you must have read in your previous classes. So moving further towards the next one, that is threshing. So students, one may pluck mangoes or guavas from the trees, but grain seeds are much smaller than mangoes or guavas. So plucking them from their stalks would be impossible. So how does one separate grain seeds from their stalks? So the process that is used to separate grain from stalks is threshing. So in this process, the stalks are beaten to free the grain seeds. You can see over here in the diagram, the farmer is doing that. So sometimes threshing is done with the help of bullocks. Machines are also used to thresh large quantity of grain. So this is hand picking and threshing. Moving further towards the next separation method, that is winnowing. So students, you are knowing that winnowing is used to separate heavier and lighter components of a mixture by wind or by blowing air. You can see over here the female is doing that. So this method is commonly used by farmers to separate lighter husk particles from heavier seeds of grain. The husk particles are carried away by the wind and the seeds of grain get separated and form a heap near the platform for winnowing. So the separated husk is used for many purposes such as fodder for cattle and like those. So this is winnowing. Now moving further towards the next separation method, that is sieving. So sometimes we may wish to prepare a dish with flour. So we need to remove impurities and bran that may be present in it. So what do? We use a sieve and pour the flour into it. As you can see over here in the diagram, it is given. So sieving allows the fine flour particles to pass through the holes of the sieve while the bigger impurities remain on the sieve. So we can say that in a flour mill, impurities like husk and stones are removed from the wheat before grinding it. Usually a bagful of wheat is poured on a slanting sieve and the sieving removes pieces of stone, stalk and husk that may still remain with wheat after threshing and winnowing. You can see in the other diagram, one worker is taking out the pieces of stones and pebbles from the sand. So I hope it is clear to you. So moving further towards the next process, that is sedimentation, decantation and filtration. So what is sedimentation? It's very simple process, students. You can just simply see here in the diagram as well. When the heavier component in a mixture settles after water is added to it, then the process is called sedimentation. Or we can define sedimentation as the separation process in which solids are separated from the liquid. So all the solids settle down at the bottom of a beaker and on the top a clear layer of liquid is obtained. You can see over here in the diagram also sedimentation process has taken place. And after that, decantation. Now what is decantation process? It's a process to separate mixtures by removing a liquid layer that is free of a precipitate or the solids deposited from a solution. So what is the purpose of doing that? So the purpose may be to obtain a decant, that is liquid free from particulates, or to recover the precipitate. So it's also a simple process, means after sedimentation we can decant the liquid, clear layer of liquid. Now after that, there is one another process called filtration. Is technically defined as the process of separating suspended solid matter from a liquid by causing the latter to pass through the pores of a membrane called a filter. You can simply see in the second diagram, filter paper is being used, and it is being used to separate the insoluble solids. As we are using the strainer to filter out the tea leaves from tea, so it is also a process called filtration. So these are some of the physical methods, simple physical methods for separation. But sometimes we require some special techniques to be used for the separation of the components of a mixture. So let us discuss few of them. So my first question is, how can we obtain colored component, that is dye, from either blue or black ink? So question is this one. So for answering it, let us discuss one activity through which we are able to find out that special technique of separation. So the activity is like this. You can see over here in the diagram as well. You have to fill half a beaker with water. Then you have to put a watch glass on the mouth of the beaker. I hope all of you must be knowing what is watch glass. After that, you have to put few drops of ink on the watch glass, ink either blue or black ink. After that, you have to start heating the beaker using the burner. We do not want to heat the ink directly. You will see that evaporation is taking place from the watch glass. You can see over here the vapors which is coming out from the watch glass. So you have to continue heating as the vapor goes on and stop heating when you do not see any further change on the watch glass. After that, you have to observe carefully and you have to record your observations. So now just answer these questions. Automatically you will get to know about this activity. So the question is, what do you think has got evaporated from the watch glass? All of you must be knowing what has got evaporated. Next question is there a residue on the watch glass? Next one, what is your interpretation? Is ink a single substance, means pure substance, or is it a mixture? So let us answer these questions one by one. So we observe that ink is a mixture of a dye in water. So thus we can separate the volatile component, that is solvent, from its non-volatile solute by the method of evaporation. Means the water is coming out in the form of vapors. You have been asked, what do you think has got evaporated? That is, water has got evaporated. So is there any residue on the watch glass? Yes, there will be a residue. After all the water get evaporated, there will be solid ink, colored ink. So we can define evaporation as a technique which is used to separate out homogeneous mixtures where there is one or more dissolved salts. So in many parts of the world, table salt is obtained from the evaporation of seawater. The heat for the process comes from the sun. And some common examples like where evaporation technique has been used for separating the components of a mixture, like salt and water can be separated by evaporation. Sugar and water can also be separated by evaporation. Copper sulfate crystals from copper sulfate solution can also be separated by evaporation. So we can take evaporation as a special technique for the separation of the components of a mixture. So I hope you have understood this process, how evaporation is being used and for what type of mixture evaporation has been used for separation process. So today we have discussed about the needs of separation, means why we need to separate the components of a mixture. We have also discussed about the simple separating methods like hand picking, sieving, filtration, decantation, sedimentation, and all those things. We had also discussed one special technique, that is evaporation, as the separation of the components of a mixture. So I hope all of you have understood. Thank you, students.